Good evening, everybody. Good morning. Good afternoon. Whenever it is you're watching us, this is Having Conversations with Archbishop Charles Jason Gordon, your favorite show, Shepherd's Corner. And the Archbishop has been taking us on some conversations dealing with the domestic church. And I feel that we're still on the kind of same line as the domestic church and protecting this domestic church. And this week's article, I hope you read it, and his highlighter was Take a Stand for Family Morality and Parental Rights. So that's the headliner. Family morality, domestic church, parental rights, dealing with the domestic church. So let's invite the Archbishop for his conversation with us on this topic. Good day, sir. How are you?
Reverend Deacon,
Hey.
I find you a little too excited for this topic, I find like you're kind of raring to go.
But you know me to be raring to go after Sunday's holiday, and the whole place raring to go.
Well, let's go.
So I want to ask this question because this is a big topic now. Who has responsibility for the education of a child? That's the question.
You want the simple answer, you want the long answer.
No, I want the long answer. Look at me the quick and dirty, because we need to get the whole thing here.
Okay. Well, what I will say is there is, like in everything else, there are multiple relationships that we need to have. And the old people used to say, it takes a village to raise a child. Mm-hmm. So anytime a single agent to say that they have the responsibility, ask where the whole village is.
Uh-huh.
Ask for the village. When you find out how the village relating about raising the child, then you understand what we really doing. So I just giving you that as a precursor to tickle the mind to hold to while we now go through the rest of the drama. There's a global movement that is spending a lot of money in Trinidad and Tobago around the issue of gender and identity. You might have seen the ads proposing that we follow other countries that allow children to decide their gender and begin irreversible medical procedures. And I want you to know that if a puberty blocker is used on a child, or if a child decides to use a puberty blocker, then in some countries in the world, the parent has no say.
Wait. Hold on. What are you trying to tell me? That in some countries, if a child, now you're saying child, and I mean to say an underage person, decide that they want to use a puberty blocker, the parents do have a say?
So if a little boy or a little girl says to you as their daddy, I am no longer John, I want to be Jane from now on, and please call me she and not he. As a parent, you cannot say, darling, I'm sorry, I will not do that. A teacher cannot say that either. A psychologist also can't say that. Okay? You're looking like you have your mouth wide open.
My mouth wide open, yes.
Do hold up your chin for me now. Your chin looking like it.
It's not bad. The hair on my chin just started to grow. I can't believe what you're telling me. A psychologist, the parents, nobody can tell the child anything.
Or teacher. If a pre-puberty child decides his gender is different from his biological sex, then the parent should give affirmation to whatever the child says.
Now, I'm a father. I have children.
I know.
you know, you putting me under some, you putting me, I would, we don't have that internet, right? I'm just saying that we don't have that internet because that's
As yet.
as yet.
As yet. As yet. So you are a father. You have a couple children, about four children. How many times in early childhood children went into fantasies about all kinds of things?
Yeah, plenty times. I have my
imaginary friends.
Yeah.
All kinds of things. And then they grow out of that and they develop into the next stage of their life.
All right.
And this is what I find most dangerous, that if once in anything around sexuality, once the adults make it a thing, it becomes a thing in the child's mind. Now, if a child comes and say, you know, I don't want to be a him anymore, I want to be a her. And if you say, oh, that's interesting, and we work along with it, what used to happen before was that would just be a thing of a couple of days and it's gone, and the child tries out something else after. That's what a child's imagination is like.
You know, I want to dive in here because I don't even think I've had that experience. What I've had is maybe the girls want to put on a gun sack and a guns and be a cowboy. You know what I mean? It was not a matter of saying, well, I want to be a boy or something like that. But you know what I mean? I want to be a cowboy. And that's it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that kind of thing. Or you would see your boys saying, well, I want to play with puppets, you know, and they play with puppets or something like that. Or a man like me, I love pink. Yeah.
Well, you know,
you call it
only
rose.
real men wear pink, eh?
Yeah, rose.
No, that's pink.
That's pink.
Priests wear rose color.
All right.
All right.
But I see where you're going.
So children have vivid imaginations and they try on identities.
Yeah.
That's just part of childhood. But when the law says that if a child tries on an identity, that the parents can't do anything else really but affirm that identity, then you're saying to the parents that they cannot parent their child, basically.
But, you know, in preparing for this show, but I don't want to go there yet, but in preparing for this show, as you said, this is a phase. This is a phase that they're going through. And, you know, I know we'll continue with the conversation, but it's a phase.
The number of girls that are transitioning is exponential right now.
Wow.
Okay? When you look back over the last 30, 40 years, the number of girls transitioning into being boys has gone exponential. That means that this is a crisis. This is not an ordinary gradual movement, step by step. This is more like a whoops. Remember the exponential curve when we had COVID?
But I think about it.
That's what it's more like that in terms of the number of girls transitioning into boys. And why is it happening? And that's part of the thing. But the media is feeding this, and also it's normalizing it, and it's making it as if it's okay. So I want to go one more step. Furthermore, if that child chooses to transition, then the parents should also support that choice.
That ain't happening in my house. It would not have happened in my house. I'm telling you, it's war.
Well, in some states in Canada, if a child can transition without parental affirmation or consent. And there's at least one parent that I've seen in a documentary who says that he is on bail right now because he refused to go along with his child's transitioning and refused to affirm the gender identity preference of his child.
And he's on bail.
And he's on bail because of that.
But Archbishop J, there's documentary evidence that 80% plus of those who at a young age say they want to transition want to come right back to who they were before.
Yes.
80%, over 80%. That's so what you'd say after they go and take all of these crazy things, they can't come back.
And to bring back the body to what the body was in the first place that's not always an easy thing, because the hormone blockers really, and there's a high correlation between the hormone blockers and cancer, and not just cancer. There's another disease, osteoporosis.
Yes.
There's a high correlation between
Yes.
the hormone blockers and the osteoporosis. So medically, this is not for the good health of the patient. But every child transitioning is big money for farm industry, and big money is being spent behind this. And therefore, we have to understand what it is we're really working with.
So the headliner, take a stand for family morality and parental rights. I see you went to good teachers in the Loudoun country in Virginia, USA, have been disciplined because they would not use the preferred pronoun of the child.
Yes. What they say is, and they have argued, that if I use the preferred pronoun of that child, I'm actually lying to the child. And the teacher said, as a parent myself, and as a teacher, I can't lie to a child.
Yeah,
now, I know you were saying, I watching you, and I know you telling yourself, that happening over there, that is not happening here.
But I'm seeing that now.
Okay. You know, when America catch the cold, or even if they even sneeze, it's pneumonia we have, eh?
Yeah.
It's pneumonia we get. So we have to decide what kind of values we want to receive and have in Trinidad and Tobago. We have to decide. We have to decide what values best suit us as this multicultural, multiracial, multi-religious society that we're living in. And if we don't decide it as the citizens of the country, laws are going to be passed on our behalf that we will have trouble with and have trouble obeying.
What you're saying here is that, but because we're in such a global village, because of, the internet, multimedia, social media, what happens in the United States, Canada, and in other so-called first world countries hits us right away.
No. I'm saying if they sneeze, we catch pneumonia. We're not only sneezing with them, we catching pneumonia because we're small.
So what
and the impact is much bigger.
So what is CARICOM deciding to do?
Well, that's another decision altogether, because they've been lobbied by the UN to introduce comprehensive sex education into the curriculum in all schools in the region. If CARICOM does this, it will take away parents' rights and parents and children's rights to education in keeping with their faith and the morality of their family.
So wait, the United Nations, you're talking about this body that was set up, right, just after the World War. This United Nations, they've been lobbying CARICOM to introduce.
A division of United Nations has been lobbying CARICOM to put comprehensive sex education into the curriculum of all schools in the Caribbean, in the CARICOM territories. And I think that would be what I would say it would be dangerous. It would be a disaster for family life, for children's education, for schooling, for all kinds of things. It's going to be, I mean, this has come to us. We didn't go looking for it. It's come to us, and we better understand what is coming to us. So comprehensive sex education brings with it the most liberal, and I would dare say dangerous ideas around sex and gender. One Jamaican textbook for 12-year-olds starts off by assuming, that all of the 12-year-olds are sexually active with multiple partners.
Hold on there, partner. Hold on there, Archbishop G. Hold on.
Your little 12-year-old child.
They are assuming that this 12-year-old child has multiple sex partners as a 12-year-old?
They are assuming that they're assuming that the child is sexually active, and second, that the child has multiple partners. The questions in the textbook are so raw, graphic, and explicit that it would make an adult blush.
Well, they'll make this adult mad. But it's talking about, but this is craziness. And this is comprehensive sex education.
That's the term it goes under. When it asks, and worse than all of that, there's no question about right or wrong. There's no question about right or wrong. There's no question about sacrifice. There's no question about waiting. There's no question about God. There's no question about your body and why has God made this body this way. All it is what I would call plumbing. That this is how it works, and you're free to use it, and you really don't have to inform your parents because you have rights.
But this is kind of reducing the human being to almost base animal, right?
So the problem at its heart is a mathematical problem.
Now, I know you was good in maths, but you gotta help now with this one,
No, there's a mathematical problem. You see, when I was in Form 2, my maths teacher taught me about LCM.
Yes.
And
HCF. Right.
And the problem here is that we go in for the LCM constantly, the lowest common denominator, as opposed to the HCF, the highest common factor.
Yeah, you're going to the lowest common multiple.
What civilization has done with children from ever since ever is put before the child the HCF, the highest common factor, and hold the child to the highest ideals. Teenagers want to be held to high ideals. And if you put the lowest common denominator before a teenage child, they're smiling all the way home. But what they really want and what they really need is to learn discipline, sacrifice, delaying gratification, understanding why you wait, and understanding why this gift of your body that God has given to you has a purpose for it, and that purpose is for your spouse, or if God calls you to religious life or priesthood, for God and for God alone. So it's a mathematical problem. How you like that one?
Yeah, boy, you catch me with that. You take me back to Form 2 there, boy.
Lowest common denominator, low, how low can we go? And that's the problem that we are having. And you see it through the whole society right now. It's through the whole society. How low can we go? If even there was a question of morality in it, it would be different. But it is as if these activities are so self-evident that you just, it's your body, do anything you want. Now, once you're stimulating a 12-year-old child to believe all is fine and that it is all okay to be sexually experimenting, you know, we have a little trouble in the camp. Eh?
That's big trouble. I know little trouble. That's big trouble.
Because without encouragement, children is already getting the foolishness. Without any encouragement. But at least they know that what they're doing is wrong. The problem with this is with the encouragement, they actually believe what they're doing is right. So there's no restraint now.
So this is this is what you call the comprehensive sex education that they are
proposing. They are proposing.
I got you.
I mean, things like you don't have to consult your parents. You don't have to masturbation is okay. I mean, on an anal sex is all right. Things that a 12-year-old really shouldn't be getting into, they're telling the child it's okay.
When the child should be thinking about playing
pitching marbles and playing with dollies.
Yeah, riding bicycle, enjoying life. You're putting this child into a whole way of life that it should be for adults only.
And the problem, there's a really important book written some years back about the loss of childhood.
Yes.
And that's what we're dealing with here. We're stripping childhood away from children. And children no longer have childhood. I mean, children up till, you know, puberty before were really children.
Yeah.
And unless some adult abused them, they were really children.
Yeah, yeah.
But what we have here is that we're stripping childhood away. And it's boiled down to whatever the child wants and feels good doing, that's what you do.
Yeah, but I want you to,
what you do.
I want you to
but I want you to consider when your children were 12 years old, this being taught in the school that your child is in. Because that's what's coming, eh?
My children at that age, they're thinking about swimming, scouts, they're thinking about playing tennis, cricket, football. That's what was on their mind. It wasn't boyfriend and girlfriend. It wasn't that was the furthest thing from their mind. You know, daddy, I want to join the scouts. Daddy, you know, that's what, when you tell a child here this, no, sex is, everybody, all children, because what you said there, from the age of 12, they have multiple sex partners and nothing wrong with masturbation. And you open a whole different, but who's pushing this
kind of worms?
Who's pushing this thing?
So this is an American or US or Canadian based approach that introduces gender fluidity into the curriculum. I mean, there's a picture in the textbook for 12-year-olds that, I mean, no 12-year-old child should be seeing of two people in the picture. Just leave it that way. You know, and then the whole thing of gender fluidity, that you can be any gender that you want to be. So this is also being introduced to the comprehensive sex education.
No, I read your article and I couldn't believe what you told us, because this body has just opened up a branch in Trinidad, the International Planned Parenthood Federation.
Yes. They have they set up shop here in Trinidad, and according to a fact sheet from the US Bishops Conference, they are primarily into the abortion business. Most of their money, they make as much money or more money sometimes than their grant from abortions than from the grants they get from the government to do their business.
Oh, it's big business.
So they're in the abortion business. Their second business is the gender, I will call it the gender confusion business. This letting children believe that they can be anything that they want to be biologically. You know, in an official publication, I should have, my bad, my bad. I should have tell you buckle up,
But club, I saw dog
It's
right
too
now. I
late.
can't go anywhere. Listen, what you telling
It's
me?
too late. I see that it hit
Yeah.
the steering wheel already. Hear this one. In an official publication of the International Planned Parenthood that's called Exclaim, here's what they say. Sexual rights are human rights and apply to everyone, no matter what age.
But I bust the airbag, everything, and what you just finished telling me there. Sexual rights are human rights and apply to everyone, no matter what
No
age.
matter what age.
No, you said no matter what age.
I know what I said, I know what I said. I'm telling you, this organization is here in Trinidad and Tobago right now. Okay? They set up shop. This is their book. I'm not making this up. Okay? This comes from their book. It's called Exclaim. Go on the internet and do a search for it. International Planned Parenthood, Exclaim, and you'll see the PDF. This is their book. Sexual rights are human rights and apply to everyone, no matter what age. That's number one. Okay? They have 10 core sexual rights that they have outlined in the Declaration. And all of these are relating to young people, okay? And they say each right is equally important. So the order in which they appear does not mean that any is more important than the other. So far, so good. And under the right to equality, here's what the Declaration enshrines. Removal of parental involvement or spousal consent laws that prevent young people from seeking sexual and reproductive health services.
Stop. Pause this conversation. Removal of parental involvement, stop, pause, or spousal consent laws that prevent young people from seeking sexual and reproductive health services. You know what? When I see sexual and reproductive health services, that tells me, abortion. The removal. My goodness.
It's a right, This is one of their rights. Removal. This is the right to equality. The right to equality. Removal of parental involvement or spousal consent laws that prevent young people from seeking sexual and reproductive health services. So in other words, your 13-year-old could go in and get condoms or get
birth control pill,
whatever contraception pill, whatever contraception they're pushing on that, on the flavor of that day. Your 13-year-old girl can go in and get whatever contraceptions she so desires, and you as a parent have no involvement or don't have to give any consent to your child going on to contraception. Your 13-year-old son could go in and get condoms and get advice and get whatever, and you have no say whatsoever in this whole matter.
Wait. Yeah, you have me there. But we call these people, Planned Parenthood, but family planning. Family planning on Henry Street used to have a condom dispenser on the gate on Henry Street. You know that?
No. How I gonna know that?
You know what I mean? And I, as a St. Mary's boy, I'm going up the road to Holy Name Convent because we have Legion of Mary. And you passing by this gate, family planning gate, and there are condom dispenser on the gate. That's true,
Yeah, I don't doubt. I don't doubt.
And that's plenty years ago. But gone clear now.
Well, that was back then. But I want you to see how why is this sinister? Because once you start removing the parents' rights, is no longer the village raising the child in support of the parents, is the village taking over the child against the parents' values and against the parents' desires. There's a big difference, you know. When they say it takes a village to raise a child, the idea behind that is that the village is working in support of the parent in the raising of the child to values that we have all agreed to.
Mm-hmm.
What this is the village hijacking the child and trying to raise the child against the values, the whims, the fancy, or the desires of the parents.
So it's no longer the education of the child is no longer under the domain of the parents.
No.
And under their faith-based value systems.
No. Here this one. This is still their book, eh? It's still their book. Under the right to privacy, it sees as essential, essential autonomy to make decisions about one's sexuality in line with the evolving capacity of young people and without forceful interference from parents, guardians, or other adult figures.
When
I said in the beginning of the show, what was happening in other countries, you didn't understand that this is a policy. This is a policy. It's not just that it's happening, it's a policy. Autonomy to make decisions about one's sexuality in line with the evolving capacity of young people, and without forceful interference from parents, guardians, or other adult figures. That is your teacher, that's your therapist, that's your parent, that's your priest, that's your pundit, that's your
imam.
Your imam, that's your minister, that's everybody.
Under the right to privacy, it sees as essential autonomy to make decisions about one's sexuality in line with the evolving capacity of young people. But they can't even remember. You ask a child, what do you want to do? You say, well, I'm not sure. You know, the typical child.
Today, the boy is a fireman. Tomorrow, he's a policeman.
Yes.
Next day, he could be a priest. The next day, he could be a businessman. Next day, he could be a plumber. As the imagination is fired up, a child goes to whatever fires the imagination lasts. So to think that a child could make a major decision about sexuality as a pre-puberty person is really a little bit crazy. We already know the frontal lobe does not close until 24, 25 years old. We know that. So how you can't drive till you're 17 years old. You can't vote till you're 18. You can't, they have all kinds of things you can't do before a certain age. But they want to give the child the right to decide something as fundamental as the normal development of their body into an adult male body or into adult female body. And they want to take a perfectly well-functioning body and give it loads of medication to stop it from developing normally.
But what about the legal age to drink it in Canada? You telling me that for young people, autonomy to make decisions about one's sexuality in line with the evolving capacity of young people and the right to privacy. And in Canada, you can't buy alcohol unless you reach age 19 or 18.
And this is a more fundamental decision than drinking.
Yes.
Drinking passes through the system, and the next day, there's no trace of alcohol in your body after 48 hours. This one, this is passing through the system and staying in the system for the rest of your life. And if you want a reversal, that's real drama. So I'm saying it's a major challenge, and one that we better understand, or when it comes our way, we would not understand what to do. After speaking about removal of laws that require parental approval, I want to go on. The seventh right calls for the liberalization of abortion legislation to enable all young women to access safe abortion care. The liberalization of abortion legislation to enable all young women to access safe abortion care. This is right number 7. And this is still on their document, okay? This is still their document. What I find interesting is that the UN Convention on the Right of the Child, Article 5, states, parties shall respect the responsibility, rights, and duties of parents to provide in a manner consistent with the evolving capacity of the child appropriate direction and guidance in the exercise by the child of the rights recognized in the present convention. You see the difference?
What do you mean?
So this is the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, Article 5, saying that parties shall respect the responsibilities, rights, and duties of parents. But in this other one, Evolve, say let's remove all parental rights. So they themselves at war with themselves. I want you to see the inconsistency, but I want you to see from the rights of the child, Article 5, to this new doctrine that is being peddled, a consistent move to remove the parents' rights in determining the values and the morality and lifestyle of their children. And I think that that's a fairly dangerous shift. I wanna just say one more thing about the gender fluidity and why the teachers objected. When, no matter what you say about a person's perception of who they are, there's something objective about their body. And when a little boy determines that, oh, from now on, I want to be a girl, that's his fantasy, okay? He might even believe it's his reality. He might even believe that. But objectively, his body is a boy's body. Not just because of the external genitalia that you can objectively see, but because the organs in his body are stamped male or female. And if he's a little boy, the organs in his body are male internal organs. And chromosome is also marked that way. So, okay, I know. There's the exception of the intersex. That's a really small exception. You can't make a rule based on a small exception. And even with the intersex, you know, that's to be treated separately. But in a boy's body, if he gets certain ailments, even if he's transition, the doctor will have to know what the biology of his body is to treat him for certain ailments. Otherwise, they will mistreat him and cause serious problems.
Correct, because the treatment of the male body is very different in terms of the treatment of the female body for specific illnesses. That's a biological medical fact.
Correct.
So you could transition how you want to transition.
But your body remains male or female.
Correct.
Is my point.
Yeah.
And therefore, if you ask me to call you a girl, I am lying to you by agreeing with you. So I just want to make that point, why this is so dangerous and why the teachers decided to not go along with it. So let's talk about the parents. All rights have corresponding responsibilities, huh? And nobody is talking about the responsibilities. All they're talking about is the rights. And they're exaggerating the rights and downplaying all responsibilities. There is a reason why most nations identify an age under which a child is considered a minor. It is because the child has not yet reached the level of maturity to hold the responsibilities that are associated with rights and with majority people who are adults. There's a reason why children are not allowed to have a license to drive a car or buy alcohol or buy drugs. There's a reason why there's an age limit where children are not allowed to go to certain movies. There's a reason for all of these things. Because society generally has understood that children have to be socialized, protected, and raised to be able to make the adult decisions. But the force here is to take that away and allow children to make major life decisions without the guidance of parents, forcing the parents to only affirm, or else they would be in legal challenges. And, you know, this thing does not stop. It just does not stop. I would say, sadly, for far too many 12-year-olds, they're thrust into the adult world of sex through play, pornography, predators at home and elsewhere. And that is absolutely sad. And I would also add to that in the Caribbean, the incidence of 12-year-olds thrust into the adult world of sex is far too high. Far too high. I meet them all the time. The 9-year-old, the 10-year-old, minding their own business on some screen, and something pop up, they click on it and find themselves looking at things they didn't even know existed. So I am not saying that there should be no sex education for children. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm advocating actually that we should be doing education for children. And it should be holistic education that starts with who the person is as a child of God, and both your rights and your responsibilities. You have this body, but this body gives you responsibilities too. You can't do with it what you want, when you want, where you want, and how you want. There are responsibilities that we have to teach children. And if we're not teaching them both rights and responsibilities, we're miseducating our children. So I am acknowledging the fact that too many children are thrust into the adult world of sexuality, especially with us. But I'm also saying this is really an unfortunate thing. It should not be. And we all should be protecting children as much as possible from being thrown into the world of sex. And we should keep them protected from that world of sex as long as humanly possible.
Now, I'm looking at a more sinister plot here, Archbishop G. And I want to put it out here. And this is why I like your headliner, take a stand for family morality and parental rights. What I'm seeing here is even more sinister, right? I'm seeing, because if you're saying that you want to teach children, first of all, they made they're saying that from the age of 12, they have multiple sex partners and all of this kind of thing. This is the reason for comprehensive sex education and all that kind of thing. I am seeing something more sinister. Are we going to reach a place where pedophilia is not illegal anymore? Because we are programming these children to say, but hey,
we are rather than protecting children from sexual exposure, this approach both normalizes gender fluidity and promotes sexual acting out
Yes. Yes.
at a young age. And I think the two are lethal cocktail. Children should be left in a world of childhood for as long as humanly possible. I mean, you know, when a child believes that Santa Claus comes every year, that's a beautiful thing. And when they find out, okay, it's really mommy and daddy, then you've lost your innocence. But when you find out that all of these things are being done with the body at a young age, you've lost your innocence far, far, far too young. And it's a different kind of loss of innocence. And I think we all have to regret this. And so for every instinct of sexual abuse, of sexual exposure, of rape, of incest, of pedophilia, for every time that happens to a child, we should be grieving it. And we can't act as if these things are okay. But I see what is happening through comprehensive sex education and these things as a form of abuse in itself. Because many 12-year-old children who have no clue about any of this are going to be thrust into an adult world before they're ready for it.
Yeah, because you say that this should be part of their education system. Comprehensive sex education. So you're bringing this in at a child who's pre-pubic.
Correct. What I'm saying also is that if parents are not speaking to their children when their child is 5 years old, 7 years old, 9 years old, 11 years old, 13 years old, 15 years old, and 17 years old, about sexuality, their bodies, and their responsibility, we have let down the children. We have let down the children. And we've left them unprepared for this over-sexualized world in which we are living. I've had the experience so many times of a casual conversation with a young person going towards confession, and the child stumbled upon some piece of foolishness and bent out of shape with guilt and so on, and talk them through it and say, okay, but could we make a different decision now? And the child think many times, yes. And then the next time I would see that child, they come and we talk, and how are things going? And the child, nah, I'm done with that. Most times, all a child needs is an adult who will listen, who will explain, who will give them an age-appropriate understanding of what they're struggling with, and help them to understand why that struggle or that activity is really not in their best interest, short, medium, and long term, and help them to then see possibilities for making better decisions. Many times I have found that's all a child needs. Sometimes if the habit has been entrenched for a while, it takes a little more than that.
Yeah.
But many kids I know just bump out of that foolishness and realize that I'm done with that foolishness. I quit that. And gone. That's the resilience of a child. But if you make the child believe it's okay, you have just given that child a license to stay where they are. LCM, lowest common denominator, as opposed to HCF. Our job is to put the highest common factor before every child that is in our nation, before every child, and have every child aspiring to the highest common factor.
Yeah, but see, with this CSC, comprehensive sex education, you're talking about state control. You're diving into where the state is going to take control.
Well, there's a growing push for state control over education and over the formation of our children. You'd have noticed the Ministry of Education has had several meetings over the last 2 years, talking about the Concordat, and the Concordat has become the beating boy for this thing. But behind all of this is a desire for more state control over education. And who is stopping the state control? Only the denominational churches, you know, who have their own schools. Yeah. That's who's stopping it. So I want to run this through you. Wherever you have heard about state control of children, I hear danger in its worst form. So Stalin in Russia, Hitler in Germany, Mao in China, they all had extreme state control over education. And this control aimed to captivate the minds, hearts, and imagination of the young people, as opposed to the value system of their parents. Okay? Yeah, here we're talking about Stalin in Russia, Hitler in Germany, Mao in China. And you know, the result of that is that the leaders realize that for their ideology to spread unchallenged, they need to control the young, even against their parents' interests and wishes.
Whoa, that looks like where we're going right now. Because what is coming out is putting more state control over these elements of education.
Correct. In Mao's China, the young were set against their parents to spy and denounce them. Fidelity to Mao and the socialist ideology was paramount in the minds of their children. So you had a generation of children whose thinking was opposed to the thinking of their parents, and it was disastrous. It's estimated that nearly 1 million parents were killed in the revolution because they were denounced by their children.
Wow. 1 million parents were killed. Sold out by their
control of education is a dangerous thing. It's dangerous. So whenever I see a government or a world organization seeking to push an ideology to the children directly against the wishes of the parents, I get alarmed, and I want to suggest we all get alarmed. Mao, Hitler, Stalin, they use that technique.
People, I hope that you are willing to take a stand for family morality. And don't back out, you know. And you know, sometimes just for, you know, I went with the Archbishop Sunday, for Pete's sake. And you still can't find peace.
No. By the way, it's a corruption of the word peace. Eh?
Of course I do.
Everybody just say for Pete's sake.
I know.
Now, what I want to propose, you know, is that in a liberal democracy like Trinidad and Tobago, there are three main actors in the education of the children. There's the state, there's the family, and there's the religious institution. And they all have to interrelate. Parents have the first responsibility for the education of their children. They bear witness to this responsibility first by creating a home where tenderness, forgiveness, respect, fidelity, and disinterested service are the rules of the day. And this is a quotation from the Catechism of the Catholic Church. The home is well suited for education in the values. And this requires an apprenticeship in self-denial, sound judgment, and self-mastery, the preconditions for all true freedom. Parents should teach their children to subordinate their material and instinctual dimensions to interior and spiritual ones. Catechism of the Catholic Church, number 2223. Parents should teach their children to subordinate the material and instinctual dimensions to interior and spiritual ones.
Wow.
What this comprehensive sex education is teaching is the opposite.
Yeah.
To subordinate the interior and the spiritual dimensions to the material and the instinctual ones.
Well,
it's actually teaching the absolute opposite.
Yeah. This is, you know, when God created man, he gave him stewardship over the animals and everything that was created. Now we were doing a little reverse here, right? We were bringing man down to the animal,
to
right?
The
base instincts.
LCM. The Catholic position is that the parents has a responsibility to educate their children in a manner consistent with their values, their religion, and outlook in life. The church has a responsibility to assist parents by providing a space for their children to be educated from a Catholic perspective. And the state has a responsibility to ensure every child receives a high quality level of education. The three must work together for the good of every child. The three have to work together.
I could live with that. But this is
the
not what is
has to ensure every child is educated.
Yes.
But the parents have the responsibility for choosing the value system of educating their children.
Now, you're bringing us to our point here. What is the key message in this conversation?
Well, there are international forces pushing us to their value system. And as a sovereign nation, we need to have an open conversation about what values we want to accept in Trinidad and Tobago today. We have to make some hard decisions.
And it is so relevant that we are about, you know, we are celebrating the 60th year of independence. Yes.
60th anniversary. So all of this is prepping for independence. Wait until next week. I'm coming back at you, you know, coming back at you. Action step. I want you to read up on comprehensive sex education and see if you agree with it and agree that it will be good for your child or your grandchild. If you think it's harmful, there's a petition we are asking for you to sign. You'll find it on the CatholicTT.org website. If you go there, you'll find the petition. What's the scripture reading? Jesus said, "Let the little children come to me, and do not hinder them, for the kingdom of heaven belongs to such as these." We have to save the innocence of our children. We have to. We just have to do it.
What a conversation. And I hope everybody outside there just really were in tune with what's going on, because, you know, it's a kind of a sneaky way that they're trying to put this over on us, you know, and his grace is, yeah, he giving you some comprehensive Catholic education here on the domestic church, and the domestic church on that. I just throw that in the corner.
All right.
Archbishop J, thank you so much. Say a little prayer with us, because we need a prayer.
Father, we thank you for your tremendous love. And we know, oh God, that David stood in front of Goliath, and we know who won, because David's heart and trust was in you. And we come to you saying, Lord, we put our heart and our trust in you. And we know, Lord, we stand by you and with you, oh God, not looking left, not looking right, but praying, Lord, for the preservation and protection of every child, that every child, Lord, every child may be preserved from this onslaught and may have the choice to grow and to be innocent as long as possible, but to be educated according to their age and according to their levels of understanding, in a way and in a manner that is suitable for values and morals, subordinating the natural instincts of the human to the inner impulse and to the spiritual values that you have given to us. We make our prayer through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Hallelujah. Thank you. Thank you, Archbishop J, for this conversation. Pick up your Catholic news. I mean, you know what we head into, right? Continue reading and sharing with friends and family, right? Catholic news, number one. God bless you. Have a good week.